The Mike Vrabel sweepstakes are underway, and Jets insider Rich Cimini said it is, quote, unlikely the Jets will be able to land Vrabel, and he laid out what he thinks is the most realistic incoming regime. We'll talk about that and much more, all coming up here on a Thursday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello everyone, and welcome into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Hope everyone is having a great day, January 2nd, 2025, and here we are, one more game left in the New York Jets season. I don't even know the right word. I've used them all. Disappointing, pitiful, whatever you want to call it. Season 4-12 New York Jets host the division rival Miami Dolphins at home, 4:25 p.m. kickoff, and the Jets have the opportunity to play spoiler and officially knock the Dolphins out of playoff contention. Everyone smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I appreciate you all sticking with us. Before we get in today's show, the membership raffle is in full swing. You see it here. I have all my tickets from the last two shows. I think we have 17 tickets so far, 5 for DB94, 6 for Mother Effing Chew, 1 for Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Every membership you guys gift gets you a ticket in the raffle. We have the raffle tickets here. The winner will be drawn at the end of the month. So keep gifting the memberships. Appreciate the support. And every membership you guys get, every 10 memberships, you guys give, you guys will earn a free item from the merch store that we just launched, which is pinned at the top of the chat. We really do appreciate all of your support here on the show. Let's see what's up to everyone in the chat before we get into the main topic of today's video. BC, good to see you in the chat. Appreciate your support. Chris J, good to see you. Appreciate you tuning in. Our guy Alan coming in. Hey, y'all, go Dogs. I know you're an Iowa fan, but you're rooting. You want the Georgia, which is the expected outcome really for today's game. You want the Dogs to go ahead and beat Notre Dame. Our guy Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, who has a ticket in the raffle so far. Good to see you in the chat. Jeffrey, good to see you tuning in. Thank you to whomever gifted the membership. Sweet New Year's surprise for sure, Jeffrey. Appreciate you tuning in. Our guy Jimmy Jets, who's in on the raffle, he has 5 tickets so far. Good to see you. I appreciate all of your support. Let's see. Good to see you, Alan. Said hi to you. Brian Glick, good to see you. Appreciate all of your support, and I appreciate you tuning in. And our guy Chris J coming in with a $2 super chat to get things started off. We'll give him a Jets chat. Here we go. Chris J getting us started off with a $2 super chat. That's equal to 1 channel membership. So you'll have a ticket in the raffle. If you guys want to call into the show, I'm about to throw the link in the chat. You just click that link and boom, we'll get you right on the screen. Keep your comments coming in, but here we are. We're going to get into the main topic of today's video, and it's a report that ESPN's Rich Cimini shared on his Flight Deck podcast just 2 days ago, suggesting that it's, quote, unlikely the Jets are going to end up landing Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel seems to be a front runner in all of our lists to be the Jets' next head coach. Let's take a listen to see what the insider had to say.
They really want to get an experienced person in 1 or 2 of those positions, but at least 1. And I think you want to try to get an offensive-minded head coach, but I just don't know if that person is out there. I think the Jets, if I had to bet, want Mike Vrabel right now, but I don't think Vrabel is going to come to the Jets. So my prediction would be Aaron Glenn as head coach, the former Jets player, current Lions defensive coordinator. And my prediction for GM, this is a tough one, but I'm going to go with Mike Borgonzi from the Kansas City Chiefs, their assistant GM, from obviously a model program, a winning program, and you pair him with an Aaron Glenn. Now, my dark horse tandem would be Liam Cohen, the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, and Mike Greenberg, the Buccaneers assistant GM.
Now, we broke that clip down yesterday with Nick Farry, but we couldn't really get too in-depth because we only had limited time with Nick, and we wanted to get into other topics. So here's my initial thoughts. Mike Vrabel, He's my number one candidate on my list to be the next Jets head coach. Where I stand right now is you have to do everything you can, in my opinion, to get Vrabel. He's gone out and he said he'll take the job if he approves of the general manager hire. So Mike Vrabel, his consulting contract with the Browns ended just 2 days ago. So I think you get him in the building next week, speak to him, and find out what GM he wants and get those two in the building. I think at this point you have to do everything you can to get Vrabel. If he says no, I think there still are some other good candidates out there, but I think you have to do everything you can, go full in, and try to land a guy like Mike Vrabel. You look what he did during his time as the Titans head coach, brought them to the AFC Championship with Ryan Tannehill. Really maximized the potential out of that roster. He's a huge culture guy, and I think that's what this team needs: someone who's going to come in and change the culture quickly. A cultural overhaul is the word that I think I'm looking for, and what this team needs. Ultimately, I think he would prefer if the Patriots job opens up. Obviously, is the history with the Patriots, and I think that job is very appealing because you look from a draft perspective and a cap perspective. They have over $100 million in cap room. They have Drake May, a quarterback in place, who I think there's a chance that he could be their franchise guy, and they're going to have a top 3 pick in this year's draft. I think that job, especially given his history with the team, could be a little more appealing for him. And then another sleeper job that I've heard a bit that I'd look out for is the Raiders job. Tom Brady, a minority owner with the Raiders. It's going to be interesting to see where they ultimately fall in the draft order, because I think that might have something to do, because there's a chance that the Raiders don't even fall within the top, where they're going to be able to get a quarterback. So that's going to be an interesting job to keep an eye on for. But overall, I think you have to do everything you can to get Vrabel. If the Jets are unable to land Vrabel, I have a few candidates I think we should look out for. Really, one is Cliff Kingsbury. I've been pretty vocal on him. Commanders offensive coordinator, head coach before with the Cardinals. He interviewed for the Jets job back in 2019. The Jets ended up landing Adam Gase. Kingsbury's an offensive mastermind who has a ton of experience working with quarterbacks. Now, if the Jets really want to solidify the quarterback position for years to come, I think Kingsbury is an interesting name to watch. Like I said, he's brought a team to the playoffs as a head coach. He spoke to the media today as the Commanders' offensive coordinator, and he said, "Hey, I'd like to be a head coach again." So I think you got to give a guy like Kingsbury an interview. They're going to interview so many candidates. Why not give a guy like Kingsbury an interview who has so much experience working on the offensive side of the ball, specifically the quarterback position? He's an interesting name to watch. Speaking of offensive masterminds, Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator, he's a bit on the older side here. I think he's 58. He's in his second season with the Ravens offensive coordinator, and Lamar Jackson might have another MVP season, so there's something there. They're at the top. They're one of the league's top offenses this season. I mean, he was with the Georgia Bulldogs. He was with the Bucks as their offensive coordinator. He was with the Browns as their offensive coordinator. So yeah, he's 58 years old. He's on the older side, but he has experience working with quarterbacks. Again, he's someone like Kingsbury, who interviewed for the Jets job 2019. Another name I'd look out for is Aaron Glenn. I've spoke about him. He has the history with the Jets as a personnel scout and as a player. He was their first round pick in 1994. So he spent 8 years with the team, 2 after his retiring, after as a personnel scout. So Glenn's an interesting name to watch. I would not mind him whatsoever. His connections over in Detroit, I think he could bring a solid GM with him, bring a nice offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator over with him to solidify a solid staff. So Glenn I like. And then Brian Flores is another interesting name. Flores, he obviously had that stint with the Dolphins as their head coach. He compiled a 24-25 record over there. And then he was later fired, and it was a whole thing. He sued the Dolphins for racial discrimination. Now he's with the Vikings as their defensive coordinator, where he's done great things, really kind of reviving their defensive unit. Those are all guys I would really like to be the Jets head coach, but Vrabel is still number one at the top of the list. So if they can't get Vrabel, I think those 4 guys are really interesting names to keep your eye on, and the names I think the Jets should target. Smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Really appreciate all of your support. Keep your questions, comments coming in. We're going to be sure to get to all of them. If you want to call into the show, click the link I am about to throw in the chat. Appreciate all of your support. Our membership raffle, every membership you gift gets you a ticket into our raffle that we will pick the winner for at the end of the month. Every 10 memberships you gift, you get a free item in the merch store. Let's go over to the phone lines. We have our guy, Alan, who is joining the show. Alan, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Connor? Continue the diligent work. I love listening to you every day growing
Appreciate
up
it.
over the
Thank you.
last year. The more I think about the coaching job, the more I'm thinking 2 names. And the 2 names I'm thinking are Aaron Glenn and Brian Flores. as much as I'd love to believe that Mike Vrabel would want this job, I just don't. I think I think push comes to shove, with pressure from their fan base, I think Robert Kraft's going to fire Gerard Mayo, and I think he's going to hire Mike Vrabel as his new head coach. As you said, I think that's the best job out there if it is open. I mean, you have a really good young quarterback with a potential top pick that you can trade back for a nice haul and about
Mhm.
$132 million in cap space. I mean, that, my friend, is the best job.
For sure.
Um, Aaron Glenn, I just see two jobs that might intrigue him, and that would be the Jet and the Saints job. And right now, I think the Saints job might be the worst out there. I mean, they're 64 million under the cap, over the cap.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'd want that job. I've been thinking a lot about the Flores situation. I'm still a little. It's still worrisome what happened in Miami with
Yes.
him and Tua. I know there was so much friction. I know there was talk about maybe he wanted them to draft Herbert over Tua, or he didn't like the fact that they were looking to bring in Tom Brady uh, over his head. But Flores has done such a great job with that defense in Minnesota. It makes sense. He brings a little spunk. He's a Brooklyn guy. I think he went to
Yep.
Poly Prep,
He
I
did.
believe, here,
And Boston
uh,
College.
and Boston College. And bringing in maybe a Josh McCown makes sense. And if you have to, maybe you make the trade, the pick swap to maybe bring in a JJ McCarthy. Um, as far as Cliff Kingsbury is concerned, I just don't think it works without a young quarterback, and I just don't think we have one. If I was him, I'd stay in Washington for a couple of more years and wait for the perfect role. He's done such a great job this year with Jaden Daniels, and I just don't think coming here with an unknown at quarterback makes sense for him.
Now, I think that's definitely a fair point. Kingsbury, like I mentioned, quarterback guru, worked with Patrick Mahomes at the college level, worked with Johnny Manziel, Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, the list goes on, all in different capacities. Of course, I think the Bears head coaching job, if Cliff were to take a job, is an interesting one because he worked with
Yes,
Jaden during his senior year as a
absolutely.
senior offensive analyst over at USC. Now, here, Alan, I know you threw it in the chat. I was about to pull it up of Jalen Milroe finally declaring for the draft. He's an interesting name to watch just because the way he plays kind of reminds me a bit of Anthony Richardson, the way the Colts utilize him. I watched 2 or 3 of Milroe's college games. He's kind of a run first, pass second guy. His accuracy, I'd say, is inconsistent at best. He's someone I think if he's available at the top of the second round, the Jets could possibly look to draft him. Let's say the Jets draft Jalen Milroe and Justin Fields is the starter for this team next season. Do you think that job becomes a little more appealing for a quarterback guru like a guy like Kingsbury?
Maybe. Again, the Bear job to me is the best job for him if it's available. If Ben Johnson decides not to remain in the NFC North, that would be the job that would be most intriguing, just to work with Caleb Williams. Um, Again, Jalen Milroe has a lot of work to do. He's a
Yes.
guy that I would not take anywhere remotely close to a top 10 pick. He's a guy maybe you trade up from early 2 to late 1 and just try to get his 50-year option. But other than that, I wouldn't really be enamored in taking a guy like that. He's a guy who has talent, but to me, I think he needs at least a year, maybe 2 years of teaching in the quarterback factory in the background for to me being actually intrigued in drafting him. But again, Glenn and Flores seems to be like the two guys that makes the most sense. And even though I want an offensive guy, I just don't see anybody else. I don't. If I'm Liam Cohen, I'd be more intrigued with the Jacksonville job, just staying in Florida.
Quarterback.
Maybe the opportunity to work with Trevor Lawrence. I know he's been uh, bashed for some of his recent play, but I think he just needs a new, fresh start with a good young offensive mind. And to me, Cohen would work very well with him.
Yeah, Cohen's an interesting name because I think he's 37 years old. He's only in his 37, 36,
Yeah.
something like that. He's only in his first season with the Bucks as their offensive coordinator. I feel like if the Jets were to go the younger, innovative route, Cohen would be the one of the only guys I'd really like. I mean, Todd Monken's an offensive mind, but he's not necessarily a young, innovative
He's
guy. I mean,
not.
he's 58 years old, and if the Jets were going to go with a first-time defensive mind, which feels like almost the Jets are kind of just not learning from their mistakes, the only guy I would really approve of is Aaron Glenn, the guy you mentioned. I spoke about him just because I think his connection with the Jets overall and his connections over on Detroit's coaching staff. Like, he brings a John Dorsey, a Ray Agnew as GM, a Tanner Engstrand as offensive coordinator, a Kelvin Shepard as defensive coordinator. I think that's a top staff, basically utilizing all of his connections over in Detroit and bringing them here. Alan, I know you're not a fan of potentially going the retread route with a guy like Rex Ryan. I'm not a fan of it either. What about you think of a guy like John Gruden? It's reported that some NFL teams have expressed interest in him to be the next head coach, offensive-minded guy with head coaching experience. Are you a fan of Chucky or no?
Chucky definitely brings baggage. He brings experience. I worry that Chucky would want to come with Aaron Rodgers and bring Aaron Rodgers
Yep.
back. And the idea of bringing Aaron Rodgers back has absolutely no appeal for me. I heard Connor Rodgers earlier in the week say if there's a coach who wants to
I heard
bring
that.
Aaron Rodgers back, he's not the right coach. So again, Chucky's an intriguing name. I don't want to bring him here, but I appreciate everything. Thank you very much, Connor, man.
Of course, Alan. Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate all of your support, and go Jets.
Go Jets.
There we go, Alan. Checking in, great stuff as always. Let's keep going with your calls. We got our guy Gary joining the show. Gary, how you doing?
What's going on? What's going on, Connor? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Tough loss for our Nets last night.
Yeah, but D'Angelo cooked a little bit there in the
Yeah.
minutes that he played, so that was good to see.
Little
I'm
20
the
bomb?
biggest D'Lo fan. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm the
Yeah.
biggest D'Lo fan. So I have a D'Lo jersey that I'm bringing back out of storage. I'm pumped to have him
Ooh.
and Cam in the same backcourt. Those are like my two favorite Nets since they moved to Brooklyn. Like, I love those two guys. So I'm excited to have them in the same backcourt.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No,
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, we were talking about the draft with Allen and everything. I know you're a big college guy. Where do you stand with like the overall quarterback position in this draft? I know it's one of the weaker ones. Connor Rogers described the overall draft as, quote, top heavy. Where do you kind of want the Jets to pivot this offseason? Are you a bring A-Rod back guy? Are you, let's pivot to a bridge option? Are you going to draft a Cam or Shadur High? Where are you standing right now?
So I'm kind of torn. Like, I don't want to bring Rodgers back, but like sometimes I just look at the options, and if he's willing to renegotiate his contract, I can't bring him back on his current deal. That's out.
No.
Okay. If he's willing to renegotiate his deal substantially, I don't love the idea, but give me a better idea. Like, we're not going to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. I don't think, unless you want to try to trade up next year's one and stuff like that to try to get him, which I would stay so far away from that. The other option is a bridge quarterback like Jameis Winston, or maybe you start Tyrod and then you draft a quarterback in the second or third rounds. But I wanted to comment on this because we were naming the quarterback, the coaches, and Captain Handsome Pants keeps coming up, right?
Yes.
And if you're gonna hire, like, and I hated the idea because I think he's an OC, right? But I think he makes a lot of sense for the Bears. I don't know if the Bears are going to go that route, but I don't know if Alan knows, but his resume with quarterbacks is unprecedented. I've never, like, Case Keenum at OC at U. So I'm just going to go through it real quick. Give me like 30 seconds. Johnny Manziel at A&M. Baker Mayfield at Texas Tech. Pat Mahomes at Texas Tech. Kyler Murray in Arizona. Then he went back to college with Caleb Williams, and now Jaden Daniels, right? Baker Mayfield was a walk-on. He was a fifth-string quarterback when he got to Tech, and Captain Hansen made him into what he was, and then he went to Oklahoma and won the Heisman. And the only reason they got rid of him is because it was time to give the ball to Pat Mahomes. Like, that was obvious. So, I mean, what he's done, Baker Mayfield was on scholarship at Texas Tech. Like, think about that. And they're starting quarterback. Like, what he did was incredible every step of the way. And I am 100% against Jalen Milroe. I think he's so far from the NFL quarterback. Like, not maybe 5 years from now, but like, you'd have to tear him down to scratch and then rebuild them. And it's like, why am I spending a first-round pick on a project like that? But if we hired Kingsbury and Kingsbury said, I can make Jalen Milroe a top 10 quarterback, I believe him. Right? So
Yep.
I'm against Milroe unless Cliff Kingsbury is our head coach because of his resume with quarterbacks. He says, I can make him a top 10 quarterback. He's all yours. Like, do it. Other than that, I don't want Milroe. And I think trading a first-round pick for J.J. McCarthy is a panic move and a half. Don't do that. First of all, he's injury plagued. Second of all, he's not very good.
No.
I was just a scouting report. And this when I talked to Andrew Piacco, I said, I think he's Zach Wilson in a better offense with a better coach in a more pro-style system. But he's no good. Right, and I just read a scouting report from First Round Mock that said he's worse. That was the title of the article. JJ is worse than Zach Wilson. It's like,
wow,
so far away from him. He's not. He's got some tools, and we can but it's the same thing as Zach Wilson. Like, he's not good. He bails on clean pockets. He's horribly inaccurate. He's not good in big games. Like, you just go through the checklist. Like, don't draft this guy. Don't trade for him. So I'm stuck on quarterback. I have an affection for Jameis Winston.
Yep.
But that's not a long-term answer, but at least it'd be fun for a year.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he'll throw four touchdowns, 7 interceptions every game.
You get the whole experience. You get 4
and
touchdowns.
His personality too. Like, his personality is made to be a fan favorite in the New York market. That's just who he is. Like, you look at his interviews. Obviously, he's a character, and I think that's what the New York market needs. Someone who is going to be fun and exciting to watch. It's hard to say you hate Jameis Winston, no matter how bad he goes out and plays. It's just the personality, who he is as a person, just a great guy. You mentioned Cliff Kingsbury's resume there, Gary. I remember when we spoke a few months ago, you were really opposed to Kingsbury, and then by the time we were done speaking, you're like, all right, you got me. Now I don't 1,000% hate him. We're kind of at 95% now. So it's good to hear I have someone else who's interested in Kingsbury again. I think Kingsbury is a guy, if you want to draft and develop a quarterback this year, he is a guy you're going to want to go after. You have a bridge option next year, whether it's Justin Fields. I could see him potentially coming to, work with Justin Fields while you have Jalen Milroe. I know you're not a fan of Milroe, but a younger guy like a Jalen Milroe with Dylan Gabriel just sitting behind him and, helping groom the franchise quarterback while you're working with a bridge option like a Tyrod Taylor or a Justin Fields next year. That's where I stand overall. I don't mind. I'm trying to figure out what's the ceiling and floor really for wins or losses next season. It's tough to predict because, do you bring Rodgers back? Do you not? I don't see a way where you physically can bring Rodgers back next season. I think there are just so many other better options.
Okay. I love Jameis Winston, but I have a feeling I love Tim Tebow, and then the Jets put him out for one set of downs in 2012, whatever that was, 2011. It's like, oh my gosh, get him off the field! Don't ever let him throw a ball ever again, right? Like, I feel like I might have that experience with Winston. Like, I've never rooted for a team Winston was on. I just like Winston. When he's out there, I have this with Quinn Ewers, where Quinn Ewers looks great and then he throws 2 picks. It's like, what is wrong with him, right? I have a feeling I'm going to have this with the same kind of connection with Winston. Like, I love him. I love how he plays, but when he's actually my quarterback throwing 3 picks a game, I'm going to want to strangle him. Like, I don't know. Justin Fields is interesting. I was really, really high on Fields. I thought of that class that he was taking in, which was like the greatest quarterback ever, according to the experts, the greatest quarterback class ever. I thought Fields was the best quarterback in that draft. I said I don't really love any of them, but if I was going to take one in the first round, it would be Fields. I think he has upside. To me, he's still better than Caleb Williams. So, I would be willing to try that. If you think you can get him in here at a reasonable price, I'd be willing to try Justin Fields. My thing is, we talk about, I'll give you my top 5 coaches, and you can let me know what you think about that.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so 1 and 2, it's 1 and 1. I don't care. It's Flores. I guess just by like a micro hair, I would go with Flores over Vrabel, but it doesn't really matter. I'm great with either one of them. So Flores and Vrabel are 1.
Yep.
3 is Gruden. 4 is Ron Rivera, and 5 is Kingsbury. Those are the 5 guys. And I wouldn't interview anyone else. I'm getting one of those 5. That's it. I'm getting one of those 5. I'm not talking to anyone else. I want a veteran head coach who has won and has done this before. I need to get this ship back on track. You can't sink anymore. I can't roll the dice with a young coordinator. So that's my list.
Gary, I'm going to start with my guy, Riverboat Ron. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Ron Rivera fan. Some people call me crazy for it. I think 4 for a guy like Ron Rivera might be a bit of a stretch. Here's what I like about Rivera. First off, He's came into tough situations, both stints he's had as the head coach. He spent 9 of his 13 seasons with the Panthers. He inherited a 2-14 team when he came in as a rookie head coach in 2011. He then brought him to the playoffs 4 of the next 5 seasons, including 15-1 and a Super Bowl appearance in 2015. So there's there to like. He also helped draft and develop what's his name, Cam Newton, during his time over in Carolina. Then, some are going to bash him for his time over in Washington, but he really had no quarterback. His last year in 2023, it was Sam Howell. It was that Taylor Heineke kind of Carson Wentz mix for 3 of the 4 years. He finished, I think it was a 26 and it was a losing record in Washington. He brought him to the playoffs 1 year. I mean, I wouldn't mind him. I just wouldn't put him as high as 4. Why do you like a guy like Ron Rivera so much?
Well, I got him 4. I don't have him first on my list. I have him 4. I don't think that I because he's a head coach he's won playoff games. He's been to the playoffs with multiple teams.
Brought a team to the Super Bowl.
He took a team to a Super Bowl. So there's a track record there. I don't. It's not that I love him. It's just like of the lot of available coaches. I think the track record and you're gonna knock. I don't understand his team at Washington was hot trash, and they did make the playoffs once.
That's what I've been saying.
Heineke. It's like it's not that bad. Like I would take his resume over Rex Ryan, and I know
1,000%.
Okay. Like Ryan's not on my list. I think Rivera, again, he's not number 1 on my list. He's number 4. I would much rather one of the other 3. But if we get Ron Rivera, I think that we can get the ship at least in the right direction and stop being a joke. Like stop going 4-12 or 4-13, whatever we're going to go this year. Like we can just kind of get it back in the right direction, right? Like when we got Herm, like just keep it, just
exactly.
Let's move it in that direction, right? Like maybe he's not the long-term answer, but he can at least stop this from sinking, right? And
absolutely,
that's why I want a veteran. He's got some playoff. He took 2 teams to the playoffs. He went to the Super Bowl. The resume shows that he can do that.
Yeah. Listen, this is what I'm going to say about Rex Ryan. I think the fact that he's even being considered as a head coach candidate is absolutely laughable right now. I think that's just where I stand. In no world should Rex Ryan be considered for a head coaching job right now. You look what he did with the Jets. Congrats. You brought him to 2 straight AFC championship games. The way I view that, he basically took Eric Mangini's built team. You look at a guy like Eric Mangini. He had the X's and O's. He didn't really have the personality, so to speak, to spark a team and, maximize their full potential. That's what Rex Ryan did. He brought energy and he gave that team the spark they needed to go ahead and, go to the AFC Championship 2 consecutive years in a row. Then he goes into Buffalo with what is a stacked roster at the time and does absolutely nothing. And that was his tenure ended in Buffalo in 2016. That's almost a decade ago, Gary. That's going to be 9. That's 9 years ago. Start this year. It's crazy to think he has no offensive. He had no offensive stability. Like who's gonna be your offensive coordinator? I swear, Gary, if he comes in, he's gonna make his son the offensive coordinator. As crazy as that sounds, he'd probably do something like that. His son is currently serving as Detroit's wide receiver coach. Like I could see Rex Ryan bringing his son in as the next offensive coordinator. I just think that's who he is. Rex in a DC role. You could potentially sell me on it. Ideally, Gary, I have Ron Rivera as this team's next defensive coordinator. I put out my ideal regime, and I had Thomas Dimitroff as GM, Mike Vrabel as head coach. Who did I have as OC? Josh McCown as OC, and Ron Rivera as DC. When he was fired in Washington, he told ESPN, the Commanders' ESPN beat reporter, that he's open to taking a DC job. So you could sell me on Rivera as a head coach, but if you could get him in a DC role, I think that's pretty much golden.
Yeah, no, I do too. Okay, he's not my first choice, but I think I know it's tough because of the top 3 guys on my list, 2 of them are currently suing the NFL, so that's an issue. I guess that's an issue, I guess. But I don't really know much about either lawsuit. I thought Flores was suing him because of the Rooney Rule, that felt like he was being flied out to do interviews that he had no chance of getting. I'm not really sure the certainties of either lawsuit or the details of either lawsuit.
Yeah.
But are those lawsuits that would prevent him from coaching an NFL team, head coaching an NFL team?
Well, I'll start with Flores. Flores, no, because he's a defensive coordinator right now.
DC.
He sued them for racial discrimination. basically from like going behind his back. There was whole thing, his relationship with Tua, telling him to intentionally, just sell games. It was a whole thing, but Stephen Ross ultimately got sued and Miami lost their first. So no, the Flores thing is well behind us. Now Gruden's an interesting one because this is newer, and it was because there was this whole thing with potential like homophobic emails being sent around. I don't know if you remember that, and
I remember a little bit. Yeah.
yeah. So now he's suing the NFL. I think there will need to be a lot of paperwork done, but he's an interesting option if you can get him in. He has experience, again, a ton of a wealth of knowledge on the offensive side of the ball, and I think he brings energy. He loves the Jets. You see his content over at Barstool Sports on his podcast. Gruden loves football. You could sell me on John Gruden as the next head coach. Again, I'm prioritizing experience here, and I think that's what a Gruden brings to the table.
No, I agree, Connor. You're doing a great job.
Appreciate it, Gary.
Keep up the great work, my man. Appreciate everything you do. Keep bringing out
Gary,
great content.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate your support. Appreciate the call, ladies and gentlemen. Our guy Gary checking in. You guys want to call into the show? I'll throw the link back in the chat. The pin link at the top of the chat is our merch link. It would really mean a lot if you guys could go ahead and check out our merch store. We really do appreciate the support. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Keep throwing your questions in the chat. We'll be sure to get back into them. Every membership that you guys give will get you an entry into our raffle ticket. We'll be drawing the winner at the end of the month. We have 17 tickets in here over the past 2 shows, so keep the memberships coming. Really do appreciate all of your support. Where do we leave off, Bill? I don't think we actually answered any questions here in the chat. Let's see, where are we? Brian Glenn would play single high with more press man coverage versus zone. Good for Sauce and MC2. Might be hard to find a number 2 QB, free safety and strong safety to make it happen. They would need another run stuffing linebacker. Look, I think this team's going to have a lot of moving pieces on the defensive side of the ball in free agency. Sherwood's an interesting one because Sherwood, I think, a lot of his production depends on the scheme. So that scheme, I don't really know if Shamian Sherwood would fit that scheme. So like I said, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces with the new regime coming into town because we have a ton of defensive players that are free agents. Brendan Eccles is another perfect example. Cornerback, there's potential that he's going to be the cornerback too. Is he going to fit the scheme? It's a lot of it depends on bringing these people, bringing the head coach GM in here first, evaluating the current roster and do these players fit the scheme or not. So I think that's what it is right now. Let's see. Alan, question, what is the ceiling with A-Rod in 2025? 8 or 9 wins? This is tough. I think it honestly might be less than that. I'm not a big Aaron guy. I think I might be overreacting a little that I say maybe it's less than 8 or 9 wins. I'd say 7 and 10 is probably the ceiling, though, with Aaron. And then you're also doing so much damage to yourself from a cap perspective as well. So I don't think in any world Aaron Rodgers deserves to come back, even if it's on a reworked contract. I think Tyrod Taylor gives the Jets a better chance to win next year. Who's another one? Justin Fields, Jameis Winston. I think a lot of these free agent quarterbacks give the Jets a better chance to win next year than 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers. And if he gets injured one more time, boom, I think his career could be over in a second, if it's not over already. So I think under any circumstance, you can't bring a guy like Rodgers back. Billy, exactly what I was saying about Vrabel. Before he's a Patriot, I don't want a Patriot coaching the Jets. He never coached the Patriots. He just played under them. Like, I've heard that talk around. I think based on his experience, he said he'd take the job. I think you have to do everything you can to get him. I don't really care where he comes from. Look at a guy like Bill Parcells. He came from the Patriots. Look at a guy, obviously this is a player, but Curtis Martin. So, Bill Parcells from we've had so many guys from rivals organizations. So that doesn't bother me as much as it does other fans. That's what I'll say. Let's see. Okay, Alan checking in. I think Cliff Kingsbury would be fantastic with a young quarterback like Caleb. Not anything here with the Jets. Again, I think if they draft a guy, maybe that ups their potential. Let's say the Jets go ahead and they take a first-round flyer on a guy like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders if they fall and then have him sit behind a Tyrod Taylor or something, Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields, something like that for a season. Maybe Kingsbury would be sold here. I mean, I think he at least deserves an interview. He interviewed for the job 2019. There were talks of him becoming a part of the offensive coaching staff last offseason. Obviously, that was under Saleh as head coach, but still, I think I think you basically need to cast a wide net and interview everyone. Completely agree, Chris. Appreciate you tuning in, Jameis. Yeah. How can you not like Jameis Winston? Like, just his personality, everything. His personality is made to be a fan favorite in the New York market. That's who he is. That's who Jameis Winston is. Let's see. Jimmy, can Cliff make Travis into a great quarterback? I mean, fully healthy Jordan Travis has a similar skill set to a Kyler Murray, a Jaden Daniels, and that's who that's who Cliff basically really worked with. So, you know, I don't know about that because he's coming off this huge injury. I think he could work with Travis for sure, and maybe try to maximize his potential. But I don't think we can really we can't really expect anything out of Jordan Travis. I don't think. I wouldn't be surprised if he never plays a snap in the NFL. Coming off the injury, that gruesome leg injury that he suffered back in November last year with FSU. Let's see. Billy, I actually kind of agree with the statement. We're drafting the best available defensive player on the board. I would not be surprised if the Jets went ahead and did that. Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, Michael Williams. Those are all interesting names to watch on the defensive side of the ball who might be available when the Jets are on the clock. I wouldn't mind any of those guys at all. I think you really got to focus on developing defensive talent, because it feels like what the defense did this season, there are going to be a lot of moving pieces for sure. See what's next. Let's see. Here we go. Adirondack Fly Guy. Rex would never settle for DC. I mean, he interviewed for the Cowboys DC job. I wouldn't say never. I do agree with that to an extent, just based on his ego. I don't know if he'd settle for a DC role, like I said, just based on his ego overall. But I would not take Rex Ryan as a head coach. You could sell me on him as a DC. You could potentially sell me on him as a DC. I would not go for him as a head coach. Would not go for him as a head coach. Alan, I like Cam not as much to give future capital to get him. If he fell to us, great. Other than that, I enjoyed Tennessee or the Giants. I think if Cam Ward or one of those quarterbacks falls to us, I think you have to go ahead and take him. Shedeur, maybe not, but if Cam Ward falls to you at wherever the Jets are picking, you could 1,000%, sell me on him for sure. I wouldn't mind, taking Cam Ward and then having him sit behind a Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields for a season or two. Jump to the bottom. Chris J wouldn't touch Deion's kid with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, I'm a Colorado fan, but I still don't really want to go near Shedeur right now, just based on his ego and going near Deion. What the whole thing of him intentionally throwing the ball, taking sacks, instead of throwing the ball away, so it helps his completion percentage QBR. I think it's a joke. I wouldn't. I think there's too much luggage that comes with drafting a guy like Shedeur. That's where I stand. Jimmy, Rex want to coach if he can get back as a DC and then prove he still has it. Some team will give him a shot at head coach in 2026. I think if he wants to come back, he has to be a defensive coordinator. I really do. He interviewed for the Dallas DC job last year. I just think someone who's been out of the league as a head coach for 9 years now and hasn't had success since 2009, 2010, which really wasn't even his roster. I don't think that's worthy of a head coaching job. That's just where I stand. Billy, this team is talent and no identity. Rex and Gruden will definitely give this team an identity. I mean, so will Mike Vrabel. So will Brian Flores. So will Aaron Glenn. All three of those guys have energy. They're culture guys. Gruden, yes, for sure. I think Rex is really only a culture guy at this point in his career. I think you can get culture and X's and O's in some of these candidates. Let's see. Let's see. JD, who cares if a head coach candidate played for a division rival? Ha ha ha. Would be such a dumb reason not to go for a head coach with experience. I mean, I'm with you there, to be completely honest. I think, look where Bill Parcells came from. Look where Curtis Martin came from as a player. I don't care that he played for the Patriots. I think you still have to do everything you can to go ahead and get a guy like Mike Vrabel. And whoa, we got 5 memberships coming away from our guy DB94. If you hear your name called, you're a now member. Well, DB, you gifted a membership to yourself. I don't think that's something I've ever seen before. It's gifted a membership to yourself. Zelex, Dan Philcox, Party with Peg and Artie, and Malcolm Harper. You are all memberships, DB. 5 raffle tickets incoming for you. That will get you up to 10 memberships. You are now in the lead. Every membership that you guys gift is now a raffle ticket in our raffle. So that's DB's leading the way with 10. We draw the winner at the end of every month. So keep the memberships coming. We really appreciate all of your support here on the show. Boom. DB getting things started off, and let's keep these memberships flowing. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Really do appreciate the support. Jimmy Jet said I did that on yesterday on BG stream. It's so weird. Yeah, I haven't seen like you guys actually gifting memberships to yourself. Really, really interesting. I've seen it like Nick Shine Show, for example. They somehow max out on memberships. It's the only channel that I've seen max out on memberships. So it'll just stop. Like someone will gift 5 memberships, and those memberships just won't go to someone for 3 days. It's really weird. But yeah, YouTube's been kind of weird with the memberships lately. That's something I've noticed. But yeah, I've never seen someone gift a membership to themselves. DB, appreciate your support. Let's keep the memberships flowing. Really do means a lot. Let's go back to your comments. Billy SBC. Biggest problem we'll have with the head coach search is who's going to want to come here. The Jets have a history of being a snake bite organization. Well, Billy. James Palmer, NFL Insider for the Bleacher Report said basically the main selling points for this head coach and GM job is it's a clean slate for these guys, and they have some talent to work with. Like there's talent on this roster, so JD Jets alluded to earlier on. Like there is talent on this roster. The problem is, Woody Johnson meddling. I see what you're saying right now, a snake bite organization. And I understand that. I think what a Mike Vrabel, a Brian Flores, and Aaron Glenn is going to say in an interview, a Ray Agnew, a Mike Borgonzi, a Thomas Dimitrov, all of these top candidates for the GM and head coaching job are going to say, we'd be okay taking this job, but Woody, you have to let us do our jobs. I think that's going to be one of the things. And another selling point, the Jets hand out 5 to 6 year deals to these head coach and GM candidates. So I understand what you're saying, but I think that is going to be a top question in these head coach and GM interviews for sure. I 1000% get that. Let's see. Adirondack Fly Guy, Kingsbury could turn Fields into a beast. Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, he has a similar skill set to Jaden Daniels and Kyler Murray, two quarterbacks Kingsbury has had a ton of success working with, so I could see that for sure. Teresa, don't you think they should hire a GM before hire a GM first, then head coach? I think so, unless it's Mike Vrabel, because Mike Vrabel, I think, is going to have a say in the GM discussions. But if it's not Mike Vrabel, I think you go ahead and hire a GM first. I think that makes the most sense. Appreciate you tuning in, Teresa. Let's see, where are we? JD, Woody gave Jody control for 6 years. It didn't work out, so he made a bunch of dumb panic moves. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you look at Woody Johnson's history as a owner. He doesn't really meddle, and if he doesn't meddle if he trusts the head coach and general manager. I agree with this comment. You look what Joe Douglas did. He had 6 years really up with this team, and he didn't do much. So Woody Johnson decided to step in, make a panic move, fire Saleh without his approval, and then go ahead and fire him weeks later. Like Woody Johnson doesn't have as much as I don't like Woody Johnson as an owner, and I think he's an awful owner, he does not have a history of meddling. This was basically a one-time thing because he did not trust his guys. He didn't meddle under when Rex Ryan and Mike Tannenbaum were the head coaches and general manager. Like he never did that. He only meddles when he does not trust the guys below him. Let's see. Here we go. He coached that roster back-to-back AFC Championship games. Doesn't matter if you put together a roster or not. Look at the roster and look where we are right now. I'm just saying there are better candidates than Rex Ryan. He has not been in the league for 9 years. He's a defensive-minded guy. He's had no offensive stability. There are way better options out there. I can probably name 12, 13 head coach candidates I'd rather have more than Rex Ryan. That's where I stand. That's where I stand. I'm not a Rex guy. I understand why people like Rex, what he did to this organization as a whole. I understand that, but I'm not touching Rex with a 10-foot pole. I am not touching Rex Ryan. Let's see. Jimmy Jets, hey Connor, just a side note, I think you should go back and watch Howard's film. You were underestimating him. Jimmy, we are all entitled to our own opinions. I appreciate the comment there. I watched 3 of his games. I'm not a fan of him. You might be. I'm gonna go watch. I just watched 3. I'm gonna watch the rest of the bowl game from yesterday. I didn't get to watch much of him, but I'll tell you if I change my opinion on Howard. I know you're a big Howard guy. Appreciate you tuning in. Let's see. I agree with this comment 1000%. DB94. The Jets need a long-term solution. Rex Ryan isn't that. Vrabel, I think you can get a solid 4 or 5 years out of. Brian Flores, again, he's on the younger side. Not Rex Ryan, Aaron Glenn, excuse me, is in his 40s. Like, there are interesting options out there for sure. I'd put a lot of names over Rex Ryan. I'll give you that. That's where I stand. Smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I appreciate you all tuning in. Appreciate all of your support. We're going to wrap up here shortly. So get your final memberships, questions, comments in. Last chance to call into the show if you'd like to. Throw the link back in the chat. I appreciate all of your support. We're going to wrap up here in a few minutes. Last chance to call in. Get your questions, comments, super chats, memberships. In every membership you guys gift is a raffle ticket. So I appreciate all of your support here. Billy, Carroll wouldn't be a long-term solution. Would you give him an interview? It can't hurt to give a guy like Pete Carroll an interview. He has a ton of energy. He's 73 years old, but he has energy. I mean, why not? He has experience with the organization. Obviously, was here for the 1994 season, where he was the head coach. Obviously, one and done after the fake spike year, but why not? They should cast a wide net, interview everyone. Maybe they're impressed, and you bring him in as a potential consultant. You bring him in as as an executive role. You bring him in as a positional coach, coordinator potentially. Like, why not give this guy an interview? Because maybe you're impressed, and you're like, hey, I would love to have you, Pete Carroll, as a consultant. I would love to have you as a coordinator. I would love to have you in a role that is not a head coach. That's where I am right now with these guys. Let's see. Got a few more comments left, but before we get to those, we do have a caller on the line. Let's go out to our guy, Brian Glick, who's joining us on the show. Brian, how you doing?
What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Great show again.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you giving Jets and Jets community lots of love. We need it. It's been a rough season. Try to stay optimistic here. I'm thinking about some of the comments in the chat. If we're likely to get a defensive head coach, great. Okay. None of us really have a say in this. So we're sort of debating the possibilities. We're really just hoping for improvement, right? So I look at that and I think, okay, cool. Hey, they get a defensive-minded coach. How does that fit the players? Well, I don't think a 3-4 fits Quinnen, or our edge rushers, maybe Jermaine a little bit. I don't think the single high is a bad thing if it's Glenn. They play the 4-2-5, similar to what Salah, ran. So, hey, that to me has some appeal. But I look at that and I say that works for the Lions because they got Branch on the back end as a safety. They've got pieces in place where they don't have many weak links back there. So I look at the Jets and current roster. I say, well, we need 2 safeties. We need another linebacker. We need a number 2 cornerback. And Michael Carter is awesome. But then on run only, or when you think they're going to run, now we're pulling Carter off, which we did this year, right? Sherwood or somebody else comes in. We've got the same defensive issues no matter what scheme they bring in, whether it's a similar scheme or they go to a 3-4. We've got big holes on the defense.
For sure.
Lost games this year, many of them, because of those holes on the defense. So whatever coach is coming in, the defense must get fixed. And I don't know if you can fix it in a year. I don't know if 1 round of draft picks, 1 round of free agency with the dozen plus free agents we have, we got to fill our holes. We got to start thinking about paying our own draft picks, which has been a culture problem because we've paid Wilkerson, right? Okay, that went well. All right. We look at some of the things that the Jets have done. They've got to pay their own players at the right time, at the right price. And we're heading to 4 pretty darn good 2022 draft picks that look like they need some contract love. So I look at some of that and I say, okay, are we a year away from competing from a culture standpoint? Okay, we could be. From a skill standpoint, I don't know if I have my expectations of next year being playoffs. I know we should always feel that way, but I'm just thinking, how do they build a program? Because we brought too many young quarterbacks into not a great program, and they've just been skewered, right? I mean, Jets have just traditionally just destroyed some quarterbacks. We get some high pick, and we don't have the O-line, we don't have the skill players, we don't have the offensive coaching in place. So I don't care who the coach is. I don't care who the GM is. Next year is about installing a program and settling down. So I don't think Rodgers and his 2026 cap hit is a worthwhile trade-off to keeping him for 1 year. But I think the guy is an awesome quarterback. I don't want him. I'd love for him to retire a Jet now if he's going to retire. If he wants to take the vet minimum and somehow figure out how to work the cap with Devontae, and those guys are like, yeah, we got you, Jets. Give us a $10 million bonus if we win the Super Bowl. I don't know what that is. I mean, those guys are good players, great players. Love to keep great players, but can we? What's the cost?
Exactly.
We're mortgaging the future. Is it worth it?
Yeah, I'll start with I know there's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to start with the safety position that you really said. You said we're going to need 2 new safeties. I think we're going to really need 4 new safeties, potentially 3. I think that 3 for sure. There's a strong chance, though. I think it could be 4. You look because all 4 of them are free agents. Chuck Clark, he just got placed on IR. I think good riddance to him. Tony Adams is the interesting one because you could bring him back on an ROFA tender for less than $1 million. So he's the only one I could potentially see coming back. Isaiah Oliver, good riddance. Ashton Davis, good riddance. So there it is. 3. You're definitely looking for 3, potentially 4. So all those safeties to make up for it. You mentioned Jamie Sherwood there. The way he's played, I think he deserves a lucrative 3 to 4 year deal. But the question is, with a new regime coming in, does he fit that new scheme? Because as we saw, Jamie Sherwood, his play is really starting to ascend. This has been his first breakout season. So, where is his play going to go from here is the question. And does he fit the scheme of a Mike Vrabel, of an Aaron Glenn, of a Brian Flores? And then Brendan Eccles is another perfect example. He's in line to basically replace DJ Reed, but is he going to fit a new scheme that comes in? That's the massive question, because they fit the Saleh and Ulbrich scheme, but are they going to fit a legit defensive scheme? I think that's where we sit. And then in regards to Aaron Rodgers, I really don't want him back under any circumstance. I would take a shot. I really like Tyrod Taylor. I would pay him. You don't even need to pay him because he's on the roster next season. Get rid of Rodgers. Eat all $49 million next season. Just call it a bad move. And just move on from there. And where do you stand overall at the quarterback position? You mentioned bringing Rodgers back. Are you opposed to bringing a bridge option in, keeping a Tyrod Taylor to start next season? Signing a Justin Fields, having him start drafting a guy, have him sit behind a veteran. Where do you stand overall at the quarterback position?
That's a great question. I think it really falls into how our team, big picture, is going to look at 2026 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So we need competent quarterback play, because we've had it in the past where you have skilled position players and a competent quarterback couldn't utilize skill, right?
Nope.
And that meant no development. And then you get the opposite, where right now we have a competent quarterback and it's not quite working out, right? So my answer to that is complicated. What's the value that we place on experience, and then what's the price tag? So there's going to be a trade-off there where you pay too much for too much experience, or you're paying too much or overpaying a Kirk Cousins or somebody else. So no, from a bridge standpoint, I think Tyrod Taylor is an awesome human being. All right. Met him in Miami this year.
He's a great
Awesome
guy.
dude.
I haven't met him, but from what I've heard, he's an awesome dude. Yeah.
Right. I want to see Jordan Travis get a fair shot. It's unfortunate we haven't been able to see him healthy and develop. And then I go to that next. Okay, Rodgers costs too much. If it can cost less, okay. But is that a slap in his face? Is he going to be willing to ride the bench after 7 weeks of, hey, the defense is still not good, or we have a new system and a whole new coaching system and we're out of it, in November? Is he going to take hey, put the kid in. I'm going to put the clipboard. I'm going to mentor him. I'm going to be the best backup quarterback in the league. I don't know. I just don't see it. So I don't know I don't like Jameis Winston. He's exciting to root for in fantasy, but he's such a clown.
I don't know about a clown. I think that's a little much.
I don't think disrespectfully on him, the human, but he tries so darn hard to be a good leader. His pregame speeches feel real awkward. His leadership style just feels odd. I'm fine with a gunslinger, but I want somebody who could take 5 and 10 yard chunks down the field, control the ball, and get their defense a rest. I don't need someone that's going to chuck it all the way down the field or hand it off. I know no risk it, no biscuit. I get it. but it's too much for me. The defense can't be great if the offense is giving away the ball. And that's what I'm afraid of. How you're going to be comfortable watching the Jets and him throw 4 interceptions in a game?
No, I never said Jameis Winston's really at the top of my list right now. I'd put him. I really think there are a ton of options that give the Jets a better chance to win next season over Aaron Rodgers. That's just where I stand. In all honesty, it's not only the cap hit. I just think that I at this point, I am not even trying to be sarcastic. I do think Tyrod Taylor gives the Jets a better chance to win on Sunday than Aaron Rodgers does. I really do. He's mobile. He's still elusive. He's able to make plays. He's able to feed the ball to our top playmakers. I mean, I know it's garbage time against third string defenders, but look at last season. Tyrod Taylor put 11 games for the Giants. Granted, it's a smaller sample size than Rodgers' 16, but he leads Rodgers in every single metric except yards and touchdowns. And Rodgers has played 5 more games this season than Taylor did last year. Where's Tyler Conklin been all season? That's someone I was really looking forward to watching. Rodgers has always used his tight ends. I'm like, it's going to be a Conklin breakout year. He's basically done nothing this season. Then Tyrod Taylor comes in and boom, he's feeding him the ball. He's making plays. Garrett Wilson, who's been visibly upset with Aaron Rodgers, Tyrod Taylor is flinging him the ball. Like I'm a fan of Tyrod Taylor, and I think there are options in free agency. Justin Fields, I think, is better than Aaron Rodgers and gives them a better shot to win. Where I stand next year, you mentioned giving Jordan Travis a shot. I think the mentality us Jet fans need to have with Jordan Travis is I don't think we can really rely on him for anything, and I think you have to look at everything you get from him as an absolute bonus. This is a guy who was selected in the 5th round coming off a gruesome leg injury that we barely see any quarterbacks bounce back from. So you're looking there and give him a shot in the preseason, see what he could do in training camp. But I don't think in any world there's a shot that he's the team's starting quarterback next season. Ideally, I think it's Tyrod or Field. Tyrod and Fields kind of battle it out for the starting job, and let's say Fields gets it. All right, you have Tyrod Taylor as an elite backup, or vice versa, and then you have Travis, who's kind of still sitting behind those two guys, learning in his first fully healthy season in the league. I think that's the ideal plan right now.
That sounds like a good one.
Thanks.
I don't think investing a first or a second in a young quarterback in the draft is the way to go. I understand draft, develop, and mentor them, but right now we have holes in other spots. We've already done that. I've watched the Jets do it before. There's way too many high draft picks that could have been O linemen, could have been D linemen, could have been the right safety that could have built a franchise. And if you get all those pieces together and you got the right culture, either the free agent bridge wants to come here or you mortgage a draft or two and you move up and get your guy. So, I have a lot of hope. I want to kick Miami's ass this weekend.
For sure.
It's the last game and we got to end the season like last year on a high. So I'm hoping we get to see a little Malachi Corley play. I'm hoping we get to see some positivity and keep those penalties down because Kinlaw's killing me. Clemens, who I love as a human and is amazing, I can't stand the foolishness on the field. We've got discipline problems. So whatever coach, whatever player you bring in, we have to start with if you don't like the discipline, you're gone. I don't care what you're being paid or what draft slot you came in. We have a discipline issue.
Yeah.
Gotta be corrected.
I agree 1,000%. Brian, appreciate the call. You got any final thoughts?
Keep it up, dude. Go Jets.
Appreciate the support, Brian. Appreciate you checking in. Appreciate the call. You guys want to call into the show, throw the link in the chat. We're going to wind down here shortly. Get your final questions, comments, memberships in the chat. Every membership you give gets you a ticket into our raffle. The winner will be drawn at the end of the month. Let's keep it going with your calls. We got our guy Chris G, who is joining us here on the show. Chris, what's going on?
How's it going, Connor?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not better with the way the Jets are recently, but
Yeah.
I'm not looking for a complete rebuild next year. I think the Jets have a chance to take advantage of the talent on this team by hiring Mike Vrabel. I really think there's value in making a wild card and just breaking the playoff drought, even if it doesn't mean
For sure.
a deep playoff push, because this organization needs something to build off of
Agreed.
the future. And I don't think our guy at quarterback is in this draft anyway. So I just, a bridge option, maybe get a guy like Justin Fields. I think that's the best option right now. But who do you think is couldn't be better than Rodgers besides Fields next year for us?
Tyrod Taylor. I think
Taylor?
it's really. I'd take both those guys over Aaron Rodgers in a heartbeat from a statistical standpoint and from a financial standpoint as well. Chris, if the Jets keep Aaron Rodgers next year, they'll owe him $63 million and that goes against the cap. Compared if they just move on from him now and you say good riddance, you move on, call it a bad move, they'll only owe him 49, which is still a lot, but it's less compared to the 63. So I think you move on from him this offseason, just cut him pre-June 1, eat all $49 million next year. You bring in a bridge option like a Justin Fields. Ideally, I want Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor to kind of battle it out for the QB1 jobs. You essentially have two really starters who've been starters in their career. You have one as the starter, and then you have one as the backup. That's my ideal plan for the quarterback position right now.
Yeah, I'm not like that's a good idea, but I'm not opposed to bringing Rodgers back if Vrabel and the GM want it. And I know I don't think Woody only meddles when he doesn't trust the people that he has. So
Exactly.
I'm hoping that he'll trust Vrabel, and the Jets should be giving up anything Vrabel wants. By the way, like blank check type of deal for him because he really he could be the guy here. And people saying that he came from the Patriots, like that's the reason we shouldn't get him. I think that's not a good argument at all. It doesn't matter. He played for the Patriots. Look what we did with Bill Parcells back
Curtis
whenever
Martin,
that
yeah,
was.
too.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Jets could win next year, and I don't want them to pay Jordan Travis any attention. I don't want him setting the team back at
Agreed.
all.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, you look and there's talent on this team. You have Garrett Wilson, you have Brees Hall, Sauce Gardner has had an off year, but he's been a two-time All-Pro in his 3-year career. So there is talent on this team. I'm not all for just punting on next season because it's a retool, cultural overhaul type year. I don't know if it's a full rebuild because, like I said, you still have winning pieces, but I think a lot of the issues come on the defensive side of the ball. Especially because the top candidates are all defensive-minded guys. You look and you see Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel. Those are all three of those guys are defensive minds. So they're going to come in with a scheme that the Jets aren't familiar with because both offensive and defensive schemes are absolute crap right now. Whether, defense, and obviously Todd Downing's offensive scheme is awful. So they're going to be completely new schemes. There's a lot of defensive free agents. Do the players fit the scheme? It really depends. Then you have to look and you have to find free agents who are going to come in here and fit that scheme. Chris, it's a mess right now, but you get this head coaching hire right. This is a completely different team. I've said it. If the Jets have competent kicking this year, the defense is able to, play a little bit better. And Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, a Mike Vrabel is the head coach of this team. We're talking about competing for a playoff spot next week, or we already have a playoff spot clinched. I don't think it's crazy to say this is a 10-win team right now with a competent coaching staff. So again, I'm not all for punting on next season. I think there's still talent on this team, but it starts with Woody. I think Woody has to get the right head coach and the right general manager in here, and then I think it goes right from there.
100%. I mean, I think you hit it there for sure. And next year, if they're going to rebuild, all the talent is going to want out. It's like all the 2022 draft class. If we completely suck next year, no one's going to want to come back.
Yep.
So next year needs to be a year where we capitalize, whether it be with Fields, Tyrod, and maybe a rookie this year. The only rookie that I would take is maybe Milrow, but no one in this class is worth a shot. So I mean, I hope we win this week because we could fall to 2. I don't want that to happen. I want them to take the best defensive guy like Mason Graham.
Yeah, for sure, Chris. Appreciate the call, and I appreciate all of your support.
100%. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course, Chris, checking in. Great job as always. If you guys want to call into the show, click the link in the chat. Last chance to do so. I thought he made some really good points there. Like the whole 2022 class, not wanting to really come back if this team is just going to settle for a full rebuild. Garrett Wilson's already frustrated with Aaron Rodgers, so I think that's already a sign to move on from a guy like A-Rod. Garrett Wilson, obviously, he's in his, kind of ending the end of his rookie contract. They're going to have to pick up his 5th-year option at the end of the season. First year, kind of with that Zach. Well, he's played with 8 quarterbacks throughout his 3 years. First 3 years with the Jets. That's the bottom line. So first year, 1,000 yards, 7-10. Second year, 1,000 yards, 7-10. This year, 1,000 yards, and he has, a massive problem with Aaron Rodgers right now. And we're talking about what could be a 4-13 team at best, 5-12. So it's a mess right now. I think you got to move on from Rodgers, bring in the right people, and it all starts there. Let's keep it going with your calls. We got our guy Philly Noodles, who is joining us here on the show. Philly, what's going on, dude?
What's up, Connor? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right, man. Doing good, man. I like your content, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I like how we get to the meat of the conversations here. I love all the other channels, but
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot.
Yeah, man. AR, without a doubt, like when something gets ugly, you have to know when to part ways. It's
Yep.
it's there. It is what it is. It's extension of building. If we're talking about eradicating the problem in the building, you got to do what you got to do. So you got to start making cuts. He's one of them. Reddick, another one. Like all the usual suspects got to just be lined out and cut out.
Exactly.
What bothers me though is we had a talk, like everybody had the talks just a few months ago when the Salah firing happened. Maybe they will look for that other person in the infrastructure. Where is that? Don't just give me GM and head coach only, because unfortunately this isn't a new ownership, right? Like with Washington, it was a new ownership, so
Yes.
that was good enough. To me, got to bring someone in. Pete Carroll just screams like a good idea just to have in the building. Give me him. Give me Curtis Martin. Give me something in the building that tells me, you know what, if someone's going to help Woody along this whole ride, the whole venture. It's not just going to be, okay, you held my hand for now for the hiring and then walk away, because it could end up doing the same thing it just did, because the
Yes.
ship was going. We were riding 7-10, 7-10.
For sure.
We're an errand away from 10-7. Okay,
Agreed.
his Achilles blew out and there it goes. You know what I mean? So something's got to give 1,000%. They need to bring someone else in the building beside them too. I wouldn't, you know what? I like that. There was that woman that they were speaking about for a little bit in the beginning
For
of all this.
GM,
Yeah, remember that
Donna Ponte or Catherine Reich, one of the two.
Ponte. I would like Ponte along with the GM and along with the head coach.
Okay, so yeah, interesting what you said there. Pete Carroll's an interesting name. You could potentially sell me on him as a head coach. Ideally, though, I would love him in a consultant role, president of football operations, a coordinator. I would love him in. Like I said, you could sell me on him as a head coach. It's just not ideal. And I agree, getting guys with winning experience in the building paired with a strong head coach and a strong general manager, I think that's ideal. Bring guys who have history with the organization, which you just laid out. Curtis Martin, obviously a player over here. Pete Carroll coached during the 1994 season, 8-8 record, all that experience with the Seahawks. So I'm not opposed to that at all. But Philly, we have a question for you from our guy, Chef Kevin Gilbert. He wants to know, please ask Phil if he still wants Daniel Jones for a quarterback.
Right.
Great show,
So,
bro. Chef, appreciate you tuning in.
This has been about in 4 different shows now. Listen, my take on Daniel, first off, everyone's got to remember something. This kid has been hit and clobbered behind the worst offensive line protection, probably in the NFL, bottom 5 for 3 seasons in a straight row. He lost Andrew Thomas every single season. So that's like Becton every single season. Look what happened to Zach. Remember in preseason? Blew his knee. People were lucky. We had a 7-10 season because he came back and he sucked. So imagine, to me, Daniel Jones needs a fair shake. I think he's going to go somewhere. Someone's going to revamp him a little bit, and he'll look halfway decent maybe in a year or two. But why can't we just have him on the bench? I never said for him as a starter. I said pick him up, throw him in camp, give him a make it or break it year contract, let him sit behind somebody like Tyrod. That just happened with him in New York. You know what I mean? Like the familiarity's there. It doesn't mean that I need Daniel Jones to come out and save the complete season. No. But something's telling me with someone with that type of arm talent, because he can throw the ball down the field. Okay.
Yep.
And he's got the legs. If everything just gets going, he has a good line, I think the kid is going to be decent. If they can make what they're making out of Sam Darnold, which was again a better competent quarterback with no legs, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? You don't need that much statistics, physically speaking, with the arm talent out of Daniel Jones when you can get something with the legs. If we're talking Justin Fields, how is Justin Fields light years ahead of Daniel Jones? Because that's my problem.
I mean, Fields has proven so much more. Like he's even the Bears situation was not ideal. Like he had basically you could argue Darnell Mooney, but he had an awful head coach in Matt Eberflus. His offensive line was bottom 5 in the league. Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney are top 15. That I could say Cole Kmet's a top 10 tight end, but Darnell Mooney's a top 20 wide receiver 1 in this league. Like he had no weapons.
He was looking good though this season. Until Kirk,
season, but during his time with the Bears when Fields was there, I mean, that was not ideal. So I just think Fields is more athletic than Daniel Jones, and he's proven more. So I don't think it's a absolute crazy argument as some people are making it out to be. I mean, you could sell me on Daniel Jones. I'd take him as our third stringer, but
that's what I'm saying.
A third stringer. But is he going to settle for that? I think he'd rather sit behind JJ McCarthy's gonna be healthy next year. I think he'd rather be a back. I think he can get a backup job somewhere else. That's what I think can happen with a guy like
And
Daniel Jones.
in my mind, if you can become a backup somewhere else, why not just be a backup here?
Because
Jordan
I
Travis
think
is not going
Tyrod
to be ready
Taylor,
next
like
year.
if Tyrod Taylor doesn't start next season, you have. I think Fields is ideally the starter. I think I'd take Jordan Travis as my backup quarterback over Daniel. I'd bring both of them in, like, or Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett. I'd take those two guys over Daniel Jones.
Well, no. I was going to say, first off, if Jacoby's even a sniff out there, which could be a reality, I mean, I would take a stab at Jacoby Brissett, but again, he shows what he's got. He's got what he's got in the tank, and then he just fails out. He fizzles out. I
I
don't know
wouldn't
why
take him
that
as a
happens.
starter.
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, so that's my Daniel Jones take, and everyone takes it to the wrong way. They're like, "Oh no, what do you mean as a starter?" I'm like, "No, not as a starter, but
Yeah,
third string, because he'll be more healthy than Jordan Travis.
exactly.
So be it, probably by next year, honestly, which sounds terrible, but it's the truth. That's why the JJ McCarthy take, I can't even take it. It drives me nuts already.
No, a first and
Um,
then some is apparently his trade
yeah,
value, which I can't
I'll
wrap
give
my
you
head around coming off
mental.
2 knee surgeries.
Yeah, no, that's unrealistic. All right, Connor, let me let you go. I'm about to close up shop here, man. I appreciate
Oh,
you
good.
letting me get on the call. Just
Of
stir the
course,
pot a little.
Philly. Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in, Philly. Appreciate your support. Appreciate the call. Now it is final time. If you want to get in on the conversation, I'll throw the link in one more time in the chat. Last chance to get your comments, questions, super chats, memberships. Every membership you gift gets you a raffle ticket. We'll pick the winner for the raffle at the end of every single month. Our guy DB94 currently leads the way with 10 gifted memberships. Mother effing Chew shortly behind him with 6 for this month. So keep them coming in. Appreciate your support. We're gonna wrap up here shortly. Yeah, what? Okay, Bobby's Gray Nuts, Field Solos, Jones. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a case to be made. I could take Jones as a third string quarterback. He has starting experience. He's brought a team to the playoffs. I'd take him as a third stringer. I would, for sure. See, anything else we should pull up here before we wrap up? Let's see. Anything else? Last chance, comments, questions, super chats, memberships. Last chance to get in on the conversation. Link in the chat to do so. It's an interesting scenario the Jets are in. It's not a full rebuild, but you definitely need some new pieces on here, whether it's from a personnel standpoint or a coaching standpoint, for sure. We'll do a show tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Friday. We'll do a show Friday. We'll do a show Saturday. And then, of course, we have our pregame, the last one of the season, our last pregame show of the season with Matt O'Leary on Sunday at the game starts at 4:25, so 2:25 start time, and then our last post game show of the season, unfortunately, at right after the game, and then the day after. I'm not going to say who it is with yet. I'll probably announce it tomorrow or Saturday, but I'm doing a weekly draft show this offseason, starting on Monday with a Jets content creator, weekly draft and free agents. So an offseason show overall with a Jets content creator this offseason. So stay tuned for that. Some really exciting plans coming this offseason. I appreciate all of your support. Smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That'll do it for me. I am your host, Connor Long, signing off. JTS Jets, Jets, Jets.